Hello everyone, Christina here. Welcome to day 9 of the holiday card series. Today I'm using the Merry Christmas and Happy New Year Better Press plate from Spellbinders. When I saw this design, I thought, oh, that's going to look so good on top of a watercolor background. So that's exactly what we're doing today. I'm going to be starting out by watercoloring my backgrounds first. So I'm using some Fabriano Artistico Extra White watercolor paper. And then for my paints, I'm using Kuretake Zig Gansai Tambi watercolor palette. And I'm going to do a bunch of painting here. I'm starting with purple. I thought I would transition to pink, but you'll see here in a moment that I sort of lose all the pink and it's going to become purple to blue. But I'm going to turn on some music so you can enjoy all of this watercolor painting. I really just wanted some beautiful backgrounds to go behind these words. After drying my backgrounds completely, I removed them from my hardboard, just peeled off all of that tape, and it was time to start prepping them for the Better Press stamping. So I'm using my Christina's Essentials dies just to cut this down to an A2 size, and I did that for both of these backgrounds. Now, on the finished card, you may notice that the actual watercolor paper is smaller than an A2 card, and we'll get to why I had to cut it down here in a minute, but for now, I just wanted to get these to the right size. So now I'm going to bring in my Spellbinders Platinum 6 die cutting machine, as well as the Better Press, and I'm going to tape one of the backgrounds onto the underside of that top plate. So I'm just using some yellow tape that I already had on the plate itself, just holding that in place on the corners. I'm going to put my plate design directly down onto this. I'm trying to center on that A2 area that's marked. And then I used an anti-static powder tool over that watercolor paper. I'm going to be doing some heat embossing, so I wanted to give it the best chance possible to have a really good impression. So I inked up that Better Press plate with Versamark ink. Now, I had never done heat embossing with a Better Press plate before, so I wasn't sure if this would work, but spoiler, it was perfect. It worked out so good on this watercolor paper. So I put that plate back down and it kind of snaps into place with the magnets in the corners. Ran that through my Platinum 6 die cutting machine. And then I lifted up off the plate and removed my watercolor panel from the plate itself. I'm going to be doing some silver embossing powder on this one. I thought, the cool tones and colors of the purple to blue worked really well with a silver color, but you could also do gold or white or any other embossing powder. I think it would look great. So I just wasn't sure if all the detail on the Better Press plate would come through on this watercolor paper, because the watercolor paper is textured. But turns out it was beautiful. I think that extra pressure from having that metal plate, go into the watercolor paper, it really applied the Versamark and even coating, and then putting this embossing powder on, it just looked lovely. Now you'll notice that my design from the Better Press plate is not centered on my A2 front of this watercolor paper, and I couldn't figure out why it wasn't centered. Well, it turns out that the clear plate that presses down onto or I should say the clear shim that the paper is adhered to, that presses down onto the press plate, I looked at it afterward and it doesn't line up for the A2 area. So it's just a little off. So for my second card, I'm actually going to adjust that plate so that it's down a little bit more. I'm just hoping that it gets a little bit more center on this second go around. Turns out it still wasn't center, but we're just going to trim these up here in the end and it won't be a big deal. So I taped down my second watercolor background, prepped that with some anti-static powder, and then I inked up that press plate with some Versamark ink once again. And I really applied quite a bit of it. I wanted to put that ink pad all over that plate so that I could get a really good impression. So then I brought over my background and put it right over top. And maybe you can see on camera here that they don't line up perfectly. It's just a little bit off. It's hard to see here, but especially once it starts going through my die cutting machine, everything just presses down and things aren't lining up just right. I'm wondering if my plate is I just need to replace it. I'm not entirely sure what's happening, but I'll figure it out. For this second card, I used some gold embossing powder. This is gilded embossing powder from Brutus Monroe. That first one was sterling embossing powder from Brutus Monroe. And this one turned out even better than the first. It still amazes me how much detail I was able to get with this heat embossing, because I don't know that I could get as good of an impression if this design was a regular clear stamp. I don't know that I could have got such a great impression with heat embossing on watercolor paper. I just think it blows my mind. It looks so good. So then I decided, let's trim this down. So I thought I would use the A2 layers from Waffle Flower. But as you can see, this design itself is actually just slightly more narrow than an A2 card. So I trimmed off, the top and bottom, but it still wasn't completely centered. So I'm actually going to grab my paper trimmer and trim off the sides just a little bit, just to get it so that it's more kind of centered on my background. And going to this, I knew this would make it so it's not an exact A2 card once I adhere it to the card base, but this is a really easy fix. I can just trim off a little bit of my white card base, and then this center design can still be right in the middle. So I put some foam tape on the back of these watercolor panels using some wide foam tape strips, and then put that directly down to a card base. Now I centered it over there on the left side, but you can see I've got to trim off, a little more than 1/8 of an inch off the right, just to get things all squared away so it looks on purpose the size of this card. So I used my Tim Holtz ruler for this. By the way, I love this ruler. It has grippy strips on it so it doesn't slide around. And it also has a metal edge, but it's also a clear ruler. It's almost my perfect ruler. It just needs to have a T-square on it. So here are my 2 finished cards using that Better Press plate from Spellbinders. I think this is gorgeous. I just want to create 10 more of these cards. I just might. And I'm going to figure out why that press plate isn't lining up in the center of my card front. I'm going to figure that out. Thanks so much for watching today. All of the supplies I used are down in the video description, and I'll be back very soon with day 10 of the holiday card series.